when they were talking to us about some of the things we should think about, they said, well, feel free to refer to the other speakers. So in reference to Matt, our first speaker, I brought along a little ball of fear, which I'm going to put down. And then I'm going to recognize Pamplemousse with a little bounce. I'm a resident of Sonoma County and count myself very fortunate for being so. Sonoma County is an agricultural paradise, and it's also a viticultural paradise. And it's a tremendous benefit for me that I have been able to work here, growing wine grapes and making wine. And I've also been able to make wine in other states and in countries around the world. And today I want to introduce to you some of those wines, because these wines, and I'm going to turn them around, these are wines of a place. And to my left, is a wine from Sonoma County. It's from Alexander Valley, which is in the northern part of Sonoma. In the center is wine from the Cape of South Africa. It's from the very southernmost part of the continent of Africa. And on my right is wine from the Horseheaven Hills, which slope down to the Columbia River in eastern Washington. Now, they don't really look that different. Bottles may be a little different shape. Sure, they have different labels. They are all Cabernet. And so they can't be that different. Well, they are. They have very individual personalities. And one of the reasons they do is because they came from different places. And it's my belief, seeing how much place impacts wine, that that's true also for our food, that our food reflects the place it's grown. And so I want to take you through a little bit about how place affects wine, and then come back to that thought. These are the things that affect wine in the big picture: the climate, the geography, the geology, and human input. And I'm going to show you slides to illustrate the first three and then tell you a story about human input. Now, this is a climate slide. We're looking at a valley. The whole valley has a very similar climate. However, this little side valley, split off by a small range of hills, has more wind flow. So then in the afternoon, when it's warm in this whole area, this part is cooler. And because of that difference in climate, the wine made from those grapes will taste different. It's a small difference, but important. This is a picture taken from a book of the geography of the Cape of Good Hope. Such a fascinating place. This is Cape Town. Cape Town is very much like San Francisco. It gets foggy. The geography of this area, we have two oceans. This is the cold Atlantic Ocean. This is a warmer mix of the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean. And the difference between this temperature and this, very close to each other, is about 10 degrees centigrade. Big difference. All of this area here is wine growing area, vineyards. And those vineyards have a special geography because they are protected from the desert that lies behind them by these mountains. So these mountains hold in the moisture. Oops. The mountains hold in the moisture that comes in from the ocean. Most of South Africa is dry. So this area is enabled to grow fine wine because of its geography. Now this is a bedrock map of a neighboring county, Napa County. You don't really need to know what it says specifically because the colors indicate the different kinds of bedrock that exist. Sonoma and Napa have a really complicated geological history. We have soils that were seabed soils that were pushed up by the overflow of the continental and the Pacific plates. We have volcanic rocks that came up through that. So our soils are very mixed, and it's the bedrock that creates the soils. And the soils, we have about 51 different soils coming from 11 different bedrocks. That's serious geology. Sorry, guys. So these three things that I've been talking about, geography, geology, and climate, make a very different place for the wines. And I wanted to illustrate that by talking about the vineyard that we have in South Africa. We grow Cabernet on a very slight slope. There are 4 hectare, 1 hectare blocks. A hectare is 2.5 acres. We harvest them separately. You wouldn't know that they were separate because there's no road between them. We make wines out of each of them, and they're very different. They each have a different personality. And that personality, those differences stay consistent year after year. You couldn't imagine looking at the site that the nuances of soil and geography and geology would create that much difference. But they do. Then I wanted to talk to you about human input. A group of wine growers, including myself, from Napa and Sonoma got together with a professor at UC Davis many years ago. And our interest was, what can we do in the vineyard to impact the quality and style of the wine? So we took a Cabernet Franc vineyard. Cabernet Franc is one of the 4 varietals grown frequently in Bordeaux and grown less frequently here. And we divided up into 4 sections. We decided to make one change in how that was managed. I mean, a vineyard manager has to make a lot of different decisions. This is one of them. The nature of the decision was the irrigation for the vineyard. So one of these blocks was not irrigated all summer. The next block was irrigated from the 1st of June to the end of September when the grapes were harvested. The next block was harvested in the first half of the summer, June and July, and the next one, August and September. It's not a big difference. The wines were completely different. I was so amazed that I have never forgotten that. One of the wines was fresh, ruby red, really aromatic, very soft, so easy to drink, very pretty. At the other end, one of the wines was very potent and rich, very jammy. And the 2 wines that had half irrigation, that was drip irrigation in the summer, were similar, but one of them was really outstanding. It was dark, almost red-black. It had this blackberry, black cherry character. It had this rich, velvety mouth, and it would be what we would consider a reserve style. But I'm not commenting on the quality here. I'm commenting on style and personality. And that one decision made by a human input made 4 completely different wines. So the point that I want to make here, wine is a mirror of the environment of our foodstuffs. I have thought again and again through the years that if changing the location can have such an impact, and if it's just a small change in location, it can have an impact. If a small change in how we grow the grapevine has an impact, That kind of impact must exist for all of our food. The thing about wine is that it goes through fermentation. Fermentation produces alcohol. Alcohol preserves the flavor chemistry in the wine, from the grape to the wine. And so we can taste those differences a month, a year, 5 years later. We can investigate them. We can appreciate them. We can sense them. We can taste them in a way that we can't do with our bananas or our apples or our lettuce or the squash, things that are much more ephemeral. We eat them and they're gone. Even grains, rice and wheat would be the same, but they're generally commodities. They're blended together, so we don't have a way in a sensory taste sense to link them to the site they came from. And it's made me understand that our food supply is very much a mirror of its environment and what we do with it. And I just want to leave you with my feeling that I have to be very respectful and responsible and sensitive to the land and the people that are producing our food. Thank you.